Hey guys, thanks for stopping by again. Got an update on the 70.5 Camaro project we're working on. Motor's finally in chassis, glued in place. It's been a long process to get to this stage. Anyway, got belt on last night and finished off the collectors on the headers. And so it's basically, I can put that aside till I get the interior glued together, and then we'll go through another dry fit and again make sure we still got hood clearance. And I won't know till I get to that stage whether or not I'm still going to have hood clearance, so we might have to go to plan B and put a scoop on it. But anyway, the hope still is we don't have to. The rest of the interior is all painted up and detailed. Chassis, the rest of the chassis tub is done. Suspension, mufflers are painted up. I haven't run the exhaust. I still have to figure out how I'm going to run the tailpipes out of this car. It's going to be pretty tight by the time the pipes get back to the rear axle because the tires are so fat in the back. I probably won't have a lot of room to try and get to the tail end of the car, so we may have to figure out how to dump those probably behind the rear axle. But anyway, we'll see when we get down to that stage. Yeah, motor came together good. Belt is all one piece. It's not dual or triple belts on this. It's one continuous belt that I wound around all these 9 pulleys on this motor, and that took me a bit to get that sorted out, but it came together all right. We'll get the camera up here and we'll kind of show you the stage of everything else. Hang on. So we got seats painted up. Seat belts I've made out of solder, which I usually do. Those are in place. Brake master's detailed and some brake lines running down from it. Center console with a shifter. Door panels are painted. I went with a blue accent like the body color, and just use Molotow liquid. Didn't use any chrome foil on the interior on this car. Everything's either painted, or I just use the Molotow liquid to do the window cranks and door handles and the little buttons along the bottom of the door panels. Dash is done, same deal. We painted the dash face for the gauges, same color as the car, blue, and again used Molotow on the gauge rings. Decals for speedometer and tach, and the other 4 gauges are in place. And otherwise, dash is ready to go. What else do we got? I did have to, with these tires and wheels that I'm going to use on this car, to get it down to the level that I want to get it without tucking the tires so far in that it looks like a rail dragster with a 70.5 Camaro body. Because the lower I get it on the back end, the further I have to shove the wheels inboard, and it just starts to look pretty stupid. So what I had to do is I cut the rear chassis, and to get the wheels so they'd fit under the body with the chassis on it. And what I found once I did that is that I still was getting interference with the rear seat and the parcel shelf for the back seat. So what I ended up doing is I've had to space the rear seat about 1/8 of an inch forward Just glued some little spacers in place here, and the seats moved up 1/8 of an inch because I had to shave down the plastic on the seat and the chassis to get the tires down to the stage that I wanted them. So I've done a lot of work back here and on the seats and on the chassis to probably gain about, I'm hoping about 1/8 of an inch, but it'll probably turn out it's only going to give me another 1/16 of an inch lower than what I'm able to do without getting the tires stuffed in there so far that it looks pretty stupid. Of course, when I moved the seat forward 1/8 of an inch, that meant the rear parcel shelf was going to, there was going to be a big gap between the rear parcel shelf and the rear window. So we've cut a little extension to the rear parcel shelf that wraps around the back, and we've used embossing powder on the rear parcel shelf and on the carpet this time. And I have to make a correction over my last video or previous video on the 61 Impala, where I said I was using flocking on the underside of the hood. That was wrong, my mistake. It was the actual embossing powder that I used on the underside of the hood on the 61 Impala. So we've done that again. This time we've done the carpeting and the rear parcel shelf. So that'll go good together. I don't think you're really going to notice that seat moved up 1/8 of an inch when the model's assembled, but I had to do some modification to the side of the seat back here so I could get tire clearance back in this area here. Otherwise I was just gonna, the tires were going to be in the original place where I had it sitting originally, so we did some work back there to accomplish that. Suspension's all painted up and ready to assemble, and same as the 61 Impala, I won't do the rear suspension until I get the model assembled and painted, before we chrome foil it, all the trim on it. And we'll set that rear ride height because I still want to try and get it as low as I can and not make it look like it's a frickin' rail dragster. Anyway, that's about where we are. Body's still in the same state. It's still sitting in primer. That's my next stage after I get the interior glued together, and the chassis, two chassis halves glued together, and we'll go through another dry fit and make sure we've got hood clearance. Cross your fingers. Decided I was going to do an electric fan on this car, so I kind of scratch built a little electric fan for it. It turned out alright. Oh, one thing that we did have to do is I moved the upper rad location from the left hand side of the car over to the right hand side, because once I started kind of in my mind mocking all this up, realized that the upper rad hose on the motor was going to cross in front and cover up most of the pulley setup on the front of the motor that I worked so hard to sort out in detail. So we've moved that upper rad location over to the passenger side of the rad. What else do we got? That's kind of about it. As I said, body's going to be the next step after I get all the interior assembled and get the motor and the front chassis glued in place, and I'll have a better idea of where I am with this thing. But anyway, I want to thank you guys again for stopping by, and as usual, take care, and we'll see you next time.